everywhere I look, people are asking the same question. Because when you watch your government strip away rights and fund vanity projects for the powerful, it's natural to wonder if silence has become complicity. It's time to bring that conversation into the light, because the truth is, tax resistance isn't new. It's as old as America itself. Long before resistance became a modern slogan, it was literally how this country began. In the 1760s and 1770s, colonists didn't pick up muskets first. They picked up their ledgers, their account books. They boycotted taxed goods. They dumped tea into Boston Harbor, not just as a protest against a product, but against a government that took their money while silencing their voices. Sound familiar? No taxation without representation wasn't just a catchy phrase. It was a declaration that legitimacy requires consent. From the very start, Americans believed that paying taxes and having a say were inseparable. You can't have one without the other. After independence, that principle was tested almost immediately. When the new federal government imposed a whiskey tax in 1791, farmers in western Pennsylvania rebelled. They saw it as another version of distant elites dictating to people who'd fought and bled for freedom. The Whiskey Rebellion forced the new republic to reckon with a question we still haven't answered. How much authority should the federal government have over people who feel unheard and overtaxed? Through the 19th and 20th centuries, tax resistance took on new forms. Abolitionists refused to pay poll taxes that funded slavery. Henry David Thoreau, he went to jail for refusing to fund a government that upheld human bondage and war. He wrote Civil Disobedience, a work that would later inspire Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., and countless movements for justice. In the 1960s and 70s, thousands of Americans refused to pay portions of their federal taxes during the Vietnam War, arguing that conscience must come before compliance. Joan Baez, Noam Chomsky, and hundreds of clergy members publicly withheld what they called the war portion of their taxes. They weren't anarchists. They were citizens trying to live up to the ideals their country taught them. And today, tax resistance looks different, but the principle hasn't changed. Every generation faces its own version of the same moral question. What do we owe to a government that fails to uphold justice? Now, let's be clear. Refusing to pay federal taxes can carry consequences, things like fines, wage garnishments, or property liens. But the truth is, very few Americans have ever actually been prosecuted for it. Since World War II, only a small number of war tax resistors have faced criminal charges. Most enforcement happens quietly through collections, not courtrooms. That doesn't mean it's risk-free, especially during the Trump era. It means the government depends on our voluntary compliance, and it knows that widespread refusal would expose just how fragile that system really is. Widespread refusal. We also live in a different era of resistance. In the 1960s, if you were fined or jailed for protest, you were on your own. Today, solidarity looks different. People rally online, share resources, and often raise the money needed for legal aid or fines within hours. The collective support systems that exist now, from community defense networks to GoFundMe campaigns, mean that those who take moral stands are rarely left to face the consequences alone. That doesn't make the risk disappear, but it shows how much public conscience has shifted. That's the historical truth we too often forget. Our nation's greatest moral movements, from abolition to civil rights to anti-war activism, has always combined conscience with civic action. And now, once again, we're standing at that same moral crossroad. The question isn't abstract anymore. It's personal, it's visible, and it's unfolding in real time. We're watching something unprecedented, a president turning public office into a stage for personal profit. There are extensive renovations being done to the White House, including the demolition of parts of the East Wing to make way for a $250 million ballroom. They're all being framed as being privately funded, but the reality is that every permit, every Secret Service deployment, every diverted staff hour comes from public resources, from our tax dollars. And that's before we count the ongoing costs of his golf outings, resort security, and legal battles he's chosen to fight using the machinery of our government, our tax dollars, $3 million for every golf outing. This isn't about partisan politics, it's about accountability, about whether the highest office in the land exists to serve the people or to serve itself. When the lines between public service and private gain blur this completely, questioning how our money is used isn't radical, it's responsible. What matters is the pattern. When leaders treat public money as private property, when accountability disappears and enrichment replaces service, citizens are right to question what their taxes are funding. That's not rebellion, that's democracy doing its job. But here's the key. History doesn't ask us to break the law. It asks us to hold the law accountable, to use every tool democracy still gives us: public pressure, organizing, oversight, whistleblowing, and solidarity, to demand that our money, our labor, our consent serve freedom, not tyranny. Because when the people stop watching, power starts spending in the shadows. When we stay silent, those shadows expand. And when we finally say enough, we join a centuries-long chorus of Americans who believe that moral resistance, whether through protest, petition, or reform, is the highest form of patriotism. So maybe the real question isn't whether we can afford to resist, it's whether we can afford not to. Because silence is what authoritarians count on. And history has shown us again and again that when ordinary people refuse to fund their own oppression, they become the heartbeat of democracy itself. I'm done pretending that this is normal. I'm done watching my tax dollars weaponized against people seeking safety, against families torn apart in the name of security, against the very idea of compassion. I'm done watching billionaires get richer while nurses, teachers, and public servants scrape by. And I'm done watching public money turned into private spectacle, into golf courses and ballrooms and hollow monuments to ego. I can't change where every dollar goes, but I can change what I stand for. I can speak, I can vote, I can organize, and I can refuse to be silent, because silence is what corruption depends on. This isn't about walking away from our country. It's about demanding that it finally live up to its promise, that our money, our tax dollars, ours, serve the public good, not private greed, that our government serve people, not power, and that someday soon, when our children look back on this fucking hideous moment, they'll know we didn't just pay the bill. We stood our ground. If my work helps you make sense of this moment, my tip jar is in the bio. It helps me keep doing this, and it means more than you know. So thank you.